We have a case now where Mr. Dover was quoted as saying what Sam Infante said, Mr. Guzman said. So there is hearsay based on hearsay in connection with the intent to kill.
Well, then is it your allegation that no one can definitely say that that was the intent?
That's what it looks like. From what we saw down in Belton, it wasn't proved.
Would three men who are tied up, and then ultimately two other officers also being tied up and being transported by automobile by two men with guns to the Trinity River bottom, and thereupon three of them killed, one injured, and another escapes, wouldn't this chain of events prove premeditation?
It doesn't prove it to me. We have a thing that started off wrong and it stayed wrong. The fact that they were dumped in an isolated spot and some of these other things, the opportunity to kill at Ingersoll or along the route, these things also, to me at least, prove an intent to tie up five men and dump them in an isolated spot, unharmed.
Now, you say this started off wrong and was one wrong built upon another. But to release Guzman now, would that be right?
As far as the A.J. Robertson case is concerned, now if they're going to try him for the other two cases, well, you couldn't release him now. I wish that we had separate trials, and I wish that they had just tried Guzman on the Guzman indictments.
Was he the leader of the two, and did he kill these men?
No, I don't. It was never proved, and from talking to Mr. Lopez and Mr. Guzman, I honestly don't think he killed anybody, but I'm sure he didn't kill A.J. Robertson, and that's what he was found guilty of doing.
Well, who did kill them?
Well, Mr. Dover said he saw Lopez shoot A.J. Robertson. We didn't have any witness say they saw or even claim that Mr. Guzman shot A.J. Robertson.
Now, I would like to ask if you think the death penalty is unconstitutional under the Eighth Amendment.
Oh, no. The claim is made by some that the Eighth Amendment, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishment, has outlawed the death penalty. I don't think there's any validity to that argument. At the time the Eighth Amendment was submitted to the states and ratified and became part of the Constitution in 1790, every state in the Union had the death penalty for many crimes, and the federal government had the death penalty for many crimes. And it's inconceivable to say that the men who had supported the laws providing for capital punishment for many crimes were thereby attempting to abolish capital punishment. It's just an absurdity.
Senator, what was your reaction to Chief Justice Berger's idea of reducing our juries from 12 to 6 men?
Well, I think I would keep a 12-man jury myself. That's been the traditional jury. I have a high respect for jury trials for two reasons. I think that 12 men selected from the body of a community are pretty competent to decide questions of fact. And furthermore, I think that one good value in a jury system is the fact that you bring in laymen. I use that term to contradistinguish them from law-trained men, to assist in the administration of justice. And I think that it's very fine to have the general public assist in the administration of justice.
any thoughts about Bonnie and Clyde now that it proved to be so popular and started so many trends in the United States? Are you still very proud of it?
Yeah, it's a good movie. I think one thing you become aware of is that picture like Bonnie and Clyde, which is kind of slow to be accepted in some of the more urban areas like in New York and Los Angeles, was taken up right away here. And that's one reason why I'm kind of interested when I get to do a picture that's a little different, a little out of the ordinary, like the one that we just made. I'm more interested in coming to an area like Dallas than I am in going to New York.
If you're a betting man, the odds are that the new Miss Texas to be crowned here tonight will be a brunette. She'll probably have blue eyes, stand about 5 feet 7.5, with statistics of 36, 24, 36. The only thing we need now is the name. The 6 girls who have been named preliminary winners in talent and swimsuit competition thus far happen to be all brunettes. Last night, the preliminary winners were both from Tarrant County. Taking top honors in swimsuit competition was Miss Fort Worth, Maybeth Cormody. The winner of talent was Miss White Settlement, Janice Bain. 10 of the 63 girls vying for the Miss Texas title will enter the finals tonight, which begins at 8:30. The contestants, all 63 of them, are having 5 hours of final rehearsal this afternoon for the big show to be regionally telecast. Whether you like beauty pageants or not, the 1971 Miss Texas presentation has been a tremendous success, a tremendous show. Some of the best talent ever seen at the beauty pageant has been presented here. And of course, there's the added attraction of Miss America, Phyllis George, and the current Miss Texas, for 5 more hours, Belinda Myrick. And one of the 63 lucky girls, one of the finalists, top 10, will be able to drive away this car later on this evening. We'll know about 10:45. This is Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.
Friday night, I came down here so that I could visit with leaders from all over the county, and we had a big group down there in my congressional office. And of all of the statements that were made, one young lady that hadn't said anything all evening when we went around the room and kind of summarized it, she said something that really came through. One young Negro man in the group had said his youngster was only 2 years old, and he said he didn't like the schools in his district where he lived. And he said, when my child at 2 gets old enough, I want him to bus and go across town. Said, I just don't like the schools in my district. And when it came her time, the lady said, you know, if the schools are no good in your district, why should my child be sent to that school? And it gets back to the basic issue. What's wrong with the school? I've checked this busing now for 10 years that they've had it, and there hasn't been a single place in America that has improved education.
The Fort Worth School Board has a deadline of this Friday to come up with a new desegregation plan for the school system. U.S. District Judge Leo Brewster set the deadline last week and said outside educators would be called in to mold a new plan if the school board does not come up with a satisfactory desegregation scheme. A plan submitted by School Superintendent Julius Trulson last week was rejected by the board. The trustees will meet again tomorrow afternoon to consider another desegregation plan, which is said to be even more broad, involving more clustering of schools and the objectionable forced busing. If a plan is adopted tomorrow, or as late as Tuesday, it will probably be submitted to Judge Leo Brewster Thursday, only one day before the deadline set. This is Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move, Fort Worth.
I presented an inquiry resolution which will come up within 2 weeks. It's a very difficult resolution to have accepted in Congress, and we'll get a parliamentary decision on it this week. What we're trying to do is to get HEW to define where they have federal cases of busing and what the policy of HEW is, just to give us their factual presentation. There's only been 2 of these inquiries that have been handed out. I have high hopes that they will rule on it, which will force HEW to make a positive statement.
Well, now, when and if you get this positive statement from HEW, where do you go from there?
Well, it'll come to the floor of the Congress, and within 2 weeks we would be able to bring it to a floor vote, which would be important in several respects, but one thing it means is that Congress will speak as to how they feel about busing. You know, the law that we passed in the last Federal Education Act was very specific. It said that no money shall be provided for school busing in order to achieve racial balance. That's in the last federal appropriation. It couldn't be more definite as to how Congress has ruled.
And you're trying to find out now whether HEW is, in fact, using some money for busing?
This is what we've asked for in this inquiry statement, because the issue is very plain, and they're not allowed to do it. And if they are doing it, they're going beyond the law themselves.
They're going to be more responsive. You see, politicians don't understand anything as well as they understand votes. They can understand it, believe me, because it's either political life or political death for them. I think that's a trait of our youngsters. They don't believe in hypocrisy. They want a straight answer, and they want a yes or a no. And I think they're going to work for a yes or no, and they're going to work for or against candidates. And that's good. That's what our whole system is all about.
Well, will it change the system, though?
No, well, it will change in that it will make the officials more responsive. It will let them see that here's a strong group that is voicing needs, and if you don't fulfill those needs, they're going to elect someone else that will.
Well, I'm, of course, very excited about it. This is probably the most critical year in my, athletic career. And as far as the chance of being a starting quarterback, this is what I'm gearing myself for, and I won't be, again, satisfied for anything less than that.
You've been working out with Roger and Craig. What shape are they in as they go to camp?
They both look excellent. Craig's arm seemed to be recovered. He can throw accurate, close, and long. It's very strong. Roger, of course, has always been in top shape.
How about Dave Manders? What kind of year do you think he'll have?
It better be a good one. I'm getting too old for a bad year.
Jess, could you recall your thoughts of last night when the 4 of the 5 finalists had been called and you had yet to be called?
Just sheer hope. It was really a desperate feeling, sort of, for the first 4 to be called. Because last year, when they called out the top 5, Phyllis was first, and I was second. And I wasn't ready to wait till the end, And I was beginning to condition myself to not make the top 5. I said, well, kid, you're not going to make it. But when they called out the 5th one, I was really happy.
How do you feel this morning?
Fantastic. That's my word for the week.
Tell us about the reception last night afterwards and what some of the other contestants said to you.
This was, I think, the best part about the whole pageant was that I felt like the other contestants really were happy for me. And they were glad that I won, and this was what made me feel better than anything else.
Now, you and Miss America are sorority sisters. You had quite a conversation right after the event last night. What were you talking about?
She just said, we're going to have a good time in Atlantic City, baby.
Last year, she took a crab to Atlantic City. Or do you have anything special that you're going to take?
We had discussed it, and my sign is Capricorn, and Peggy, the chaperone, said we couldn't take a goat.
I think the police department's more effective now than we've ever been. I think citizen support and understanding is better now than it's ever been. I think some of the court decisions that we're getting on serious crimes has had some effect, and I think there's several factors involved in dealing with the decrease in crime this year as compared with last year.
Chief, if crime continues to go down, what point are we shooting for?
Well, the crime rate in Dallas now, or at the end of last year, was about 60. In other words, we had 60 major crimes per 1,000 population. Now, when you compare this with 1960, 10 or 11 years ago, our crime rate was 15. So I don't think we can at all be satisfied with just a reduction this year compared with last year. Rather, I think we need to start thinking in terms of bringing our crime rate down to a level with which we can live. And I'm not going to be satisfied with a crime picture until we have reduced our crime rate very significantly and have brought about, again, a feeling of security on the part of anyone who wants to walk any place at any time about their safety. And I'll not be satisfied until that feeling begins to exist on the part of every citizen in the city of Dallas.
respect the opinion of everyone in this room. My vote is going to be very unpopular. But I feel like it is my responsibility to the entire school system, all the children. I have a decision to make. It's my responsibility. It's a difficult decision. I've read the papers. I know what's happening in Dallas, Austin, Corpus Christi, what have you. But I firmly believe that we must keep absolute control of our school system here in Fort Worth. We are in a dilemma. We don't want to do it, but the court has told us to do it. My best judgment would be that if I would vote no, it would be to win the battle and lose the war. Accordingly, I'll vote yes.
No.
Mr. Harrell, the people say that you would cast the deciding vote. I'd like to change seats with you because it's 3-3 at this point, and I vote yes.